I'm here really representing all the superintendents of the state, and we have a large number with us today. We have a number of superintendents from the ISDs, we have a number of superintendents throughout the state, and we have a number of superintendents even from Hume County. There's 6 or 7 other superintendents there. We also have Wanda Cook here, who was the superintendent of the year. So we're here, we gather together. We're gathered together because we have a concern. We don't have concern about competition on a fair, level playing field where everyone is treated the same. That's not our concern. What our concern is when you start changing the playing field where it isn't fair. Our concern is about the increasing evidence that charters and others don't provide expensive high school programs that have been traditionally subsidized by low-cost programs in lower grade levels. We know that. You don't see many charter schools are high schools. Because in high schools, they are more costly. They have vocational education programs, everything from welding to computer program classes. We have dual enrollment, AP classes, and almost all of high schools have ability to use technology and use asynchronous types of learning over the internet. We also have high school completion programs for at-risk kids throughout the state. And finally, we have our special education programs, such as for the autistic children, for cognitively and physically impaired children, and for the blind children. This is what the money is used for, not just to run a small program or a small school so that money can be cycled off to a corporation. Continued expansion of this model that we're discussing today will ensure schools that provide more expensive high school programs and services will die due to financial drain. Those services will no longer be available for Michigan families. This goes against the college and career-ready standards we have set for our children and the governor has set up for us to strive for. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Steve Norton, who is the Executive Director of Michigan Parents for Schools.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here today. Again, I'm Steve Norton, and I'm Executive Director of Michigan Parents for Schools, which is a statewide alliance of local parent groups who are interested in improving and defending public education in Michigan. And I'd like to just point out that there are a couple of folks, pardon me, who are from local organizations that have been working very closely with me recently. There's Angela Wilson from Okemos Schools and Elizabeth Likens from East Grand Rapids, and I want to thank them too. We're very concerned as parents about what's happening in general. Parents have not had a very strong voice over many years in trying to explain what we want out of our public education system. Part of the point of my organization was to help give parents a voice, both locally so they get involved in those issues there and at the state level. And quite frankly, we're very worried about what we've been seeing, and in particular what we're seeing right now in this lame duck session and what's likely to happen in January and February. One of the things that got us motivated was the long, slow strangulation of our local public schools. And the recent budget cuts over the last few fiscal year budgets have been absolutely devastating. So when we talk about schools that need help or schools that are struggling, I think that there are a lot of things that we need to look at, and that's one of those pieces. What we want as parents, as much as we appreciate choice, what we want as parents are good schools for our children. And in particular, we want good schools that we can have a part in helping to build and in helping to guide. And that's not what's happening here. We don't need experiments that, as far as I can tell, are based more on ideology than on any actual evidence that they help children. We don't need legislation that covers their purpose by saying that they're trying to help struggling schools while setting up whole new systems that will dramatically rewrite how public education, if it can still be called such, is offered in Michigan. We think that the kind of discussion that we're having today, where the idea is that if we want to make change in our schools, if we want to improve our schools, and we all do, then we need to look at the kinds of things that are actually working in communities and in states around the country. And then, once we do that, we need to work in partnership with the local communities, and the people who work in and have their children in our local community government public schools to implement those changes. That's the way we need to go forward. And unfortunately, what we have in front of us, the legislature doesn't do that. We hope that together they'll be able to convince our lawmakers that they need to take a new direction. Thank you.
Next on the list is Britt Slocum, who is a small business owner and is also the president of the Waverly School Board.
Hi, I didn't know I was making a speech. I thought this was a Q&A, so I just brought some bullet points that I've been ruminating on. Yeah, I'm a small business person, and I have to tell you, the way I see these two bills coming down, they're treating public schools, which are the most personal of all businesses the state is involved in, like a ham-fisted straw boss, and they've been doing that for 10 or 12 years now. I've been on the school board, I'm in my 12th year, and every year it's a new directive, and it just seems to me their management style is not working. You want to get your employees excited to be to work, but if you keep changing the rules every day, I have to look at it and kind of analogize it. If I go in and just boss these people around every day who work for me, they're not going to do a great job. They'll show up, they'll punch a clock, they'll make sure the nuts and bolts are done, but they won't care. And that's what we're seeing right now in the schools that I'm seeing are these teachers and the support staffs and the custodians and the bus drivers and the cafeteria people and the students and the parents have all been beat up so much with directives and changes that it's hard to keep your head on straight. So you just go through the motions and you're not getting passionate about what you're doing. Now, what I would like is for us to have a say in how our local school boards are run. I've seen our local control taken away, okay? And for them to say that some out-of-state business can come in and teach my kids on a computer is completely foolish. You know, they're already half train wrecked one generation of students. They don't need to do it any further. I could open up 2 booths in my restaurant and call it a virtual school. The car wash on the corner could do the same. I'm not kidding. That's how this bill is written. And now I'm going to start getting all uppity about it. Don't get me cranked up. All right? You know, I can take a management style and try and develop as part of the character of my business. But I have to give it enough time to work. Just because it didn't work for a few weeks doesn't mean I need to change it. That's what they're doing again. You know, we've been through education, yes, now, pow, bam, boom, and I just think it's silly. You know, and I'll tell you, as a business owner, I see this management style right now. This would be like me getting an insight from my meat salesman saying, hey, we got a pallet of ham coming in for $1 less a pound. You know, I'm going to give you the heads up, go ahead and order it now ahead of time. Well, I'm just seeing, and I'm calling it out. I'm not afraid. I don't care. But I think the governor and McClellan know each other a little too well. And he may be doing this pro bono, but I'm going to use the term pro favor. Yeah. There's something wrong with it. Right? This state has spent between 45 and 50 years now arguing on whether or not to add 2 cents to the cost of a can of beer, and they're going to try and ramrod this through. The biggest sweeping change. Should be on the inside. You know, and I also want to get to the cost of the students. You know, if they're going to be cutting checks for the state minimum foundation to charter schools, should they not be on the exact same playing field as public schools? Okay? Yes or no? Yeah. They're not. And I've been on a school board for 12 years, and I'm the only brick and mortar member on a school board that I know of. Because that's stupid to do that, because I get enough people ticked off in my own town. But it seems to me that it costs less to educate a young student. It costs more to educate an older student, and most charter schools stop at 8th grade. Oh, yeah. You take into account special ed students, which they don't necessarily have to take, these different types of schools, then you can spend $30,000, $100,000 on your most severely handicapped and impaired students. Where is the parity? You know, I would like us all to ask our Governor and Education Committee that. Is there anybody from the Education Committee here? I thought not. That's it. But again, I want to get back to the experiment we're having over here. And the proven track record that, hey, my home state's number 2 on the list, okay? But we should be asking them, what's working? You know, these states are going to share this with us. Why wouldn't they? You know, because who knows? Someone who lives in Michigan might be their president one day. You know, they're serving in the Senate. We all want our kids to succeed. And I believe that's a nationwide promise. So I would like them to look at something that's proven and not come out of one law office on a pro bono situation, putting together a program. Thank you.
And from the Michigan Education Association, Nancy Stratton.
Good afternoon. Looks to me like I'm in a room full of educated people. I remember when I was in kindergarten, we used to lay on mats. We had mountain graham crackers, and I think that turned out pretty darn okay. I've been an educator for 37 years. And over my 37 years, I've seen such a tremendous change in education. With the imposition that we've had with the state over the years, I'd see my little ones as in deer with headlights. You know, their little eyes were like, Ms. Strachan, what are we going to actually have to do today? I've gone from taking my 6th graders outside, laying on the grass under the trees and drawing clouds, and then writing poetry about it, to taking my kids in the classroom saying we can't go on field trips anymore, we can't have guest speakers come into our classroom, we can't. That gets rid of their prior knowledge to further their education. Those are the things that we have to be concerned with. We now are under an elitist form of education. If we are going to pick, and we're going to look at what the governor's looking at, keep in mind these are all business people writing policies for education. They're basing this on their experience as a student, not as an educator or an administrator, school board member, state school board people. It's not right because they don't know the workings, the ins and the outs of it. Where are our underprivileged kids? Where are our homeless kids? Where are our ESL kids going to fit into all of these? They're not. You know, Muskegon Heights went under emergency financial manager, and Mosaica, a private company, came in to take them over. 20% of the staff has already resigned. I think that shows you an awful lot how it's going to be. And I also want to know, where is the accountability going to be? If these students are not going to be having a slip of paper and they can go first hour here, second hour here, third hour community college, and then I can go to virtual university. It says in the bill that don't worry, it's going to be taken care of. I don't like that, don't worry that it's going to be taken care of. I like to have it more specific. Okay, this school's going to take care of your records, but this school's going to take $1,200 from you, and I'll keep track of that, don't worry. And your test scores, well, they're going to be someplace, you know, so we don't have to worry about this. We have to remember that we are the ones in the profession, we are the ones with the knowledge, we are the ones concerned. I have 2 children, I have a granddaughter right now and a grandson due any minute now, and I don't want them to go in a situation where they're like robots. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And I want you to remember one thing as I come to a close. Teachers went into this profession because they have a passion. The passion is leaving our best educators because of what's been done. Thank you, and it's wonderful to see such a great turnout today.
Who is the president of the state board.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank everybody for coming out here. What a terrific turnout. I think it sends an important message that there are people, a lot of people, who care about real quality education. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow elected state board members. Kathleen Strauss, President Emeritus, is with us today. Cassandra Olbert,